Once upon a time, John Brzenk released footage of his secret training methods that helped him to become the GOAT of arm wrestling. I searched very hard for this footage, but it looks like it has been wiped off the face of the earth. But don't worry, in this video, John Brzenk's secret exercise will be revealed. But first, we need to understand John's training method as a whole. John is someone who heavily focused on table time over weight training. Bob Brown was one of John Brzenk's training partners back in the day. He explained the way John would train. He said oftentimes John would grip up with someone and just sit there and hold his opponent until he completely gassed out. Then John would pull someone else immediately after with no rest and let them completely gas out as well. John would repeat this process until he was so broken down that he would start to lose. If you are new to arm wrestling, this process is normally referred to as king of the table. You basically sit at the table and pull everyone in a row with no rest until eventually you gas out and lose. Now, whoever beat you is the new king of the table and the process continues. This can be a very effective way to train, especially if you are stronger than everyone else in your club, which would obviously be the case for John. In this case, John would be going to failure. However, it is important to remember that he would never really be approaching his 1-rep max. Using this training method, John might be using closer to half of his 1-rep max and reaching failure more through endurance rather than max effort. But John also had a way to train to reach more of a max effort failure. Bob Brown explains that he would use 2 arms versus John's 1 arm. Just like we see here with Bob Brown on the left of screen and Jordan Sill on the right of screen. Bob would use just enough pressure to stop John and slowly gas him out. Eventually, John would lose a significant amount of strength. Once Bob felt that he had drained John enough of his power, he would switch back to 1 arm and try to win from there. So using this technique, John would get far closer to max effort failure, at least in the beginning of the pull. And these 2 methods seem to take up the majority of John's volume over his career. But what about weight training? The greatest arm wrestler of all time must have lifted weights, right? There was a time in which John did do quite a bit of traditional weight training. Things like bench press, rows, curls, etc. John noticed that he got way stronger in these exercises. However, even though his numbers were going up in the gym, he did not notice any carryover to the table. So pretty soon after this, John quit doing traditional weight training and went back to the table for his training. However, it is worth noting that more recently, John has become a fan of lifting weights again. But this time, he is not using traditional weightlifting. John does not really see the point in things like bench press or shoulder press or more classic exercises. But we have seen John doing quite a bit of lifting with handles specifically designed to mimic arm wrestling. So it looks like John does not have a problem with lifting weights for arm wrestling training so long as it is specific to the sport. But John still does seem to prefer table time in general, as you can never perfectly replicate the pressure you feel on the table. We've also seen John test his strength using arm wrestling specific exercises such as back pressure and cupping. Here we see John doing a variation of rocking back pressure. John is clearly very strong at this exercise, but he's never really trained it before using weights. John's back pressure was built using arm wrestling practice. And the same thing can be said about John's cupping. When we see John test his cupping strength using arm wrestling handles, he is very strong. But once again, he did not build this strength using these handles. He initially built it on the table. But what about John's secret exercise? Is it table time or is it weight training? John's secret exercise actually did not make use of table time or weightlifting. It was something entirely different. Something that people immediately notice when gripping up with John is how massive his thumb is. John's thumb makes it very awkward to take a grip with him, as well as making it very difficult to force him into a hook. But John's thumb is not only big, it is also very strong. Of course, a big reason why John has this thumb is genetics. John's thumb was always bigger than average. However, John also specifically trained his thumb muscle in order to make it bigger and stronger. The exercise John used to train his thumb is this exercise right here. Unfortunately, the original video of John doing this exercise seems to be gone, but this footage here shows the same exercise John uses. You grab some kind of stress ball or exercise ball. You then squeeze it repeatedly using only your thumb. This will make your thumb stronger and bigger, which is very important for arm wrestling. Your thumb is the anchor point of your top roll. If you have the strongest biceps in the world and the strongest pronator in the world, but your thumb is weak, you will still lose power. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and your thumb will probably be your weakest link. So making your thumb as strong as possible is crucial. To further support this concept, training your thumb has gained a lot of popularity recently via Devin Larratt. Devin has shown us multiple ways to train your thumb over the years, and Devin is also someone who has a very strong thumb and a very good top roll. He is nearly impossible to force into a hook, and having a strong thumb is an important piece in that puzzle. If we look at John's exercise to train his thumb and compare it to Devin's exercises, they pretty much do the same thing. They both mimic the moment in which you close your thumb in a match, which is the moment that sets up your top roll. And when John talked about the importance of the thumb, he has actually said that his thumb is his leading weapon.
What part of your hand do you consider your biggest weapon?
For me, it's been the thumb and the muscle pad on my hand to be able to crank down through my opponent's fingers.
If we take a look at some of John's recent matches, we can see the importance of his thumb. Looking at John Brzenk's match versus Oleg Petrenko at East versus West, we see that throughout the whole match, Oleg cannot figure out how to deal with John's thumb. We see Oleg attempt to hook John, and we also see him attempt to top roll John. But either way, as soon as Oleg drives to the side, his wrist folds back. John is applying so much back pressure and pronation through his thumb. John's ability to control this aspect of the match leads to his ability to climb higher onto the hand of Oleg and eventually press for the win.
Transition, watch for the press. It's coming around, he's trying to damage the wrist of Petrenko. Here we go!
We see a similar result if we watch John Brzenk versus Irakli Zarakishvili. Irakli has potentially the strongest back pressure in the world in his weight class, leading to an awesome top roll. But once again, Irakli could not get around John's thumb. John gains the ability to climb and adjust and take the high ground from Irakli. This leaves Irakli with only one option, which is the flop press.
Irakli being very intelligent about not sinking it in. Right here it comes. Now, John Brzenk at 12 o'clock standing there. There's a lot of problems there with Irakli. There's no way to finish the perfect storm in this position.
Now, John, if he's smart, he's just going to hang in there for a while. There it is. There's the press finish. And to be honest, Zarakishvili not contesting it. He knows that.
If we look back through John's career, we see people having little to no success attempting to control and contain the pressure through John's thumb. To be fair, not many people have had any success with John, but it does seem more likely if you try to go around John's thumb instead of going through it. It is important to note that John's thumb does not necessarily always work for him. The effectiveness of John's thumb does depend heavily on the style of his opponent. We see a perfect example of this during John's recent match with Denis Saplenkov. Denis is another athlete that has a massive thumb. Initially, we see both guys lose their wrist to a certain degree, but Denis makes the correct technical move. Instead of falling into the trap of trying to bend his wrist and contain the pressure through John's thumb, he allows his wrist to go back a bit. Denis focuses on attacking John's wrist with his top roll through his own thumb. Denis is okay pulling in a slightly awkward position so long as he is winning the battle of back pressure. And in this case, we see that John's massive thumb does not really help him that much. However, as soon as Denis attempted to be offensive, even for a brief moment, we see John's thumb come into play. Denis's wrist cracks back and John gains position. But Denis, well aware of this, simply returns to his defensive bleeding style and wins the match 6-0. So to wrap up, John Brzenk is an all-around arm wrestler and can pull using any technique he wants to. He does not have a silver bullet or one move in particular that makes him so hard to beat. But probably the thing that stands out to me the most about John, the thing that is the most unique to John, is his thumb. Although it doesn't always help him, it can make a huge difference depending on the style matchup. So is training your thumb a good idea in arm wrestling? I would say yes if you are an outside arm wrestler. Your thumb is the anchor of your top roll and it can only help to make that anchor point stronger. However, if you are an inside puller, the importance of your thumb decreases significantly. And honestly, having a thick hand might just make it more difficult to set a hook. But let me know what you guys think about training your thumb. We've known that Devin Larratt has been an advocate of it, but we also know that Devin is a big troll at heart. But the fact that John Brzenk was also an advocate of thumb training gives it more credibility in my mind. Maybe thumb curls really are the future of the sport after all.